and contrasting chart and my evaluation chart, I discussed a summary and how each of my articles actually related back to my own life. And the three articles that I chose were titled, the first one was Why Taking Care of Your Well-Being Helps Others. My second one was Managing Stress and Anxiety. And my third one was That Discomfort You're Feeling is Grief. And I pretty much realized that all of the articles that I read were very similar because it discussed mental health and ways that mental health can affect you and other people during this time, titled Why Taking Care of Our Well-Being Helps Others. And I saw that this article really heavily focused on our own well-being and how it has a bigger effect on people than we actually thought. The first big section that the article goes into is social circles and our effect on those if we're happy or if we're sad, or really just our own well-being. So a quote from the section that I actually got was, that means that when you are happy, the people you're connected to tend to be happier, and as the friends of those friends and the friends of your friends. So an example that the text gave was your sister's boss's running buddy. I feel like this kind of just explains how if you're happy, then everybody around you feels happier. And a statistic actually showed that people are more drawn to you if you're happy, because then that will give them a reason to be happy too, because you're happy, so they feel like they should be happy too, so kind of fit in. The next big section that it goes into is our well-being and bond with people. So usually people are drawn to more happy people and more well-being to people, kind of, sort of. That's kind of what the article talked about, and how if you're in a relationship and you're happy, then that person will want to be in that relationship more with you and won't want to be like, oh no, we're done, sorry. You're not happy all the time. You don't really necessarily have to be happy all the time, but most of the time would be good, because more people are drawn to you if you're happier. And then the last two sections talked about happiness and health of others in society. So they heavily talked about how if you're happy, then you're healthier. For the society part, it pretty much talked about if you're happier, then you feel more obligated to help societal issues and make society better as a whole, because your mindset is good, so you want to make other people's mindset good. For me, the article really affected my own life because it shows myself that my own happiness actually does affect people. And I'm really not just saying my family, but I'm also talking about people I've seen on the streets, my friends, my boyfriend, even just people at school, because I've definitely noticed that if I'm happy walking through the halls, then a lot more people seem like they're happy because they see that I'm happy. I don't really know how to explain it. It's kind of just what I see. This one time, actually, I was driving to go see my boyfriend, and I was just dancing and singing in my car, and this lady was looking at me, and we like full blown had like a full on dance party while waiting at the stoplight to turn green. But for me, I live by a motto of put others' happiness before my own. So I really focus on everybody else being happy and having a better time than me. I care more about people than I care about myself, and that goes along with my happiness. I feel like that's kind of like a bad thing to live by, but I definitely do live by it, and it's definitely affected me in bad ways, because I feel like it kind of makes me forget my own worth, because it's like I lived by that in my last relationship, and we all know what happened. And then I feel like it's just gotten way worse after that, because I feel like I'm obligated to make sure that everybody else is fine, so I put on a hidden face to make it look like I'm fine. I feel like mental health is really important in my life, and I feel like I need to worry more about my own self and my own mental health before I can worry about anybody else's, because as they say, you have to love yourself before you can love anybody else. So I feel like that's kind of like important. And then I asked a couple people that I knew personally, and like they knew how I was. I asked them to film a video and explain how me being happy has actually affected them.
Your happiness always puts a smile on my face, and you really brighten up a room.
Kaylee's well being is super important, not only to me, but also to our family as a whole. Kaylee has always been such a happy child. She is one of those people that she wants everybody to be happy, even sometimes at her own expense. We have noticed in the last probably 3 to 4 years when her mental illness has really shown that she has episodes of extreme mania. During those episodes, Kaylee is fake happy for no other way to describe it. Her brain goes 500 miles an hour with no stopping point. During those times, it's really hard to deal with Kaylee, just because it's hard to understand where she's coming from. When Kaylee's happy, her sisters are happy, I'm happy because she is not sad. She doesn't lock herself in her room. She doesn't shut everybody out. It makes her just more pleasant to be around.
Kaylee has made me happy by just being there for me when I thought no one else would be. There were times over the summer I was really sad, but then Kaylee was there, so I was less sad.
The article was titled Managing Stress and Anxiety, and this kind of goes along with the whole mental health kind of thing. I realized that the article heavily talks about how not only can you manage your stress and anxiety, but we also need to manage other people's anxiety. It gave a lot of examples and stuff. The article really started off by talking about how people during this time are very heavily affected by it and like some of the things that you should notice. So some of the examples that it gave were fear and worry about your own health and the health of your loved ones, changes in sleep and eating patterns, difficulty sleeping or concentrating, worsening chronic health problems, worsening of mental conditions, and the increased use of alcohol, drugs, and tobacco. I feel like it also really heavily explained how a lot of people are affected differently. So it gave some examples about how older people are affected, and then it gave ways how kids and young adults are affected by it. And pretty much the rest of the article kind of explains how you should deal with some of those things and how you can deal with it. And some of those examples were taking a break from reading and listening to things about COVID-19. That talks about how you should not really just listen to the news, but try to listen to something else. Or if you're on social media or something and you see something about that, don't immediately stress about it. Try to go find something that will actually make your day better. So don't just heavily read on that stuff. And then another one was that you need to take care of your body. So eating food and not really just overly stressing, because then everything else will go downhill. Making time to unwind, that could be reading a book at night before you go to bed, drinking some hot tea, taking a bath, anything like that, anything that can really help you unwind. Connecting with others. I mean, I know that we're self-quarantined right now, so we can't really go out and kind of social distancing, but that could mean texting somebody, calling a best friend from your childhood, just everything like that. And the one that I noticed was just focusing on yourself. Worry about you and your family. You don't need to worry about everybody else around you. You kind of just need to focus on you. And then even though you may want to focus on other people, I feel like it's more important that you focus on yourself before you can focus on anybody else. I said that I connected to this article because not only during this time, but all the time I battle with stress and anxiety about even the little things, just everything. And I feel like this article gave me a lot of good ways that I can battle with it and make it more bearable during my episodes, not only then, but also during this time. And kind of realized that everybody has anxiety. Even if you say you don't, I'm pretty sure that you do. But I feel like it just varies for people, and it can be better or worse for some people. I feel like just during this time, we kind of just need to calm down, take it one step at a time, and not really stress about everything, and kind of just take time for ourselves, unwind, spend time with family, don't stress about big things. But yeah, the article that I read was titled "The Discomfort That You're Feeling Is Grief," and I feel like this article really heavily talked about the different, well, not the different, but the type of grief that we're going through right now. And then it also gave us a lot of ways that we can actually deal with it. So the type of grief that we're feeling right now is anticipatory grief. And this is pretty much the grief that you're not knowing what's going to happen now or even in the future. We're pretty much all feeling this because of COVID-19, and we don't really know what's going to happen with it, and we don't know if our lives are going to go back to how they were. The author gives us the stages of grief and how the stages correspond with the virus. So a quote that I got from the article was, "There's denial," which we say a lot of early on. The virus won't affect us. There's anger. You're making me stay home and taking away my activities. There's bargaining. Okay, if I social distance for 2 weeks, everything will be better, right? There's sadness. I don't know when this is all going to be over. And finally, there's acceptance. This is happening, and you have to figure out how to proceed. The last thing that the article really heavily talks about was ways that we can deal with it to not only help us, but to also help other people around us. And this could and some of the ways that the author gave us were finding a balance of the things you were thinking about. So don't just heavily think about one thing, but try to think about multiple things, and don't think about one thing too much or too little. And then coming into the present, just don't think about the future, because you can't really control that. God pretty much has a control on it all. And yeah, let go of what you can't control. I have a problem with this. I think about things that I can't control way too much. So you can't really control anything in the future, so why think about it? Stock up on compassion, and that means that you need to just try to be nicer to people. Everybody's going through the exact same thing, so we kind of need to understand everybody's issues, and then help others and give them the support that they need. So that kind of goes back to compassion. I feel like we're all going through this together, so we all need to help alleviate some of the grief, and that we're willing to try anything because we're all stressed. And then I feel like I connect to this article because I feel like I kind of have this grief all the time. I have a fear of the unknown and worry about things in the future far too much, and even things I can't control. This whole virus is not helping either, just because it's making me worry about what will happen to me, my life, and also my family. One of the things that I'm heavily focused on is the end of my senior year, as everybody is, and graduation. Yeah. And then for me, I don't live in the now like I need to. I focus way too much on things that are going to happen later on, and I always question things. A lot of people have told me to calm down and to not do it, but it's kind of hard when you've kind of been doing it forever. And I feel like everybody has their reason. It might not always be a good reason, but I feel like we all have a reason to stress about things. Some of those things could be, what if food goes short? What if my life doesn't go back to normal? What if I can't work, support my family, see my loved ones? And I feel like we all stress about things.